going
Yes,
for it.
agree.
Okay, welcome everybody. Wave if you want. I love seeing you, and welcome and Happy New Year. Um, and Kelly and well, wait, I know why I'm not going down. Okay, that should work. Here we go. I realized that this morning that actually a year ago today, we had our last face-to-face Center for Literacy Development event since the pandemic began. Jennifer Saravallo was with us. And I gave everybody a fortune cookie when they came in. I would love to give you a fortune cookie. And we even gave everybody one of Jennifer's books. And I started to think about, the year past and in between and right now. And I just thought of a lot of words. Last year became dark, sad, scary, lonely with restrictions, rules, distancing, testing, loss, cancellations, and uncertainty. But people became creative, imaginative, kind, thoughtful, used their imagination and cooked and walked and wore masks. Now we are more hopeful, optimistic, encouraged, and confident that 2021 will have positive outcomes for us. So think about your fortune cookie you would like to have happen. I actually did ask people that and had them write it down and we talked. I'm just looking for some calm and peace and safety, some good health, that everyone gets vaccinated, kids are back in school, we can hug again, go to the theater, sports events and concerts, and that the Center for Literacy Development can open its doors for face-to-face meetings and enjoy each other as we had in the past. So our next event is Lucy Calkins, and it's pretty soon, February 18th. So please join us for that and don't forget to register. I want to mention these following people: Emily Gibbons, Patricia Hamill, Donna McDonald, Laura Hartner, and Joyce Araziza. I hope I said your name right. They just finished being jurors for a contest we participate in with the National Writing Project and also Scholastic. It's a national alliance for young artists and writers, and they read hundreds of pieces written by children, and there's an actual book published. We will be sending you certificates, those of you who help to be jurors, and some little gifts because we are very grateful to you. Thank you so much. We also want to thank these different vendors for the door prizes. We give 5 registrations to people, bookstores, a take-home resource and literacy pack. Vitamin gives us professional books. Rose in Classroom, $50 gift certificate. Sundance, also gift certificate from their website. Blue Star Education, the Live Studios, Footsteps to Brilliance, Benchmark, an Alliance for Young Artists and Writers. Let's say thank you to these vendors who are very kind. And if your name is up there, and I know you've been notified already, you will get your door prize. Thank you again, vendors. I also want to thank my advisory board. We had a lovely meeting a couple of weeks ago where they shared a lot of ideas and insight, and they do help me a lot. And so I appreciate the work that they do for the Center for Literacy Development. Again, in the future, Lucy is next. Then we have Tim Rosinski and David Pearson talking about the science of reading combined with the art of teaching reading, what it means for classroom practice. I really look forward to that interchange. Kate Roberts is coming in April, And our last speaker for the year will be John Shoemaker in June. So please join us. And I know we have a lot of new people with us. And so please look for our events for next year. I am hoping that we probably will start off with webinars, but hoping that late fall we can come in person. We are
I have to do a webinar, that's why.
doing some coaching, and please
How are you?
remember that we still do that.
Yeah.
And come to us. We have expert people working with us. Some people have their sound on, so please mute.
Do you have to do it?
I think your sound is off. We can't hear you.
Leslie, you need to unmute yourself.
Time. Was I muted the entire time? Oh my goodness. Wasting, I'm sorry, everybody. Anyway, we're doing some tutoring. So if in school districts, yes, come and join us at Rutgers for our reading specialist program. It's actually specialist supervisor. Ask me questions on email if you have any. And finally, please keep your sound off. Please chat as you have been. And this will be recorded. Visit our website for our next year events, and you can get fill out a survey, and also you'll get professional development credit. Okay, there are some, we need some people to mute. So it is time for me to introduce you to Janet Wong. Janet is a graduate, there she is, a graduate of Yale University Law School. Switched careers to become a children's author. And she has had lots of featured spots on television with Oprah Winfrey, CNN's Paul Azan Show, and Radical Sabbatical. She's author of more than 30 books for children and teens, and some of them are You Have to Write, Apple Pie, 4th of July, Me and Rolly Malou, Alex and the Wednesday Chess Club, and more. She just recently won the Children's Poet Award for National Council of Teachers of English, which is a big deal. And we are really happy and proud to have her with us. There's our certificate to her. And we want to honor you, Janet, because of all you do for New Jersey and the center, and become an honorary member of our advisory board and our center. And I hand this over to you now.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Leslie. This is such an honor to be here. And I put in the chat when people were saying how happy they were to win a door prize, I put in the chat one thing about Leslie Morrow and the CLD: generosity. And it is so true. You are so generous and you set the bar high, and we rise to it because of you. Well, hey, everybody, how are you doing? Thank you for being here. I realize that we're all super busy, and so I'm really grateful that you decided to take time to just spend 45 minutes talking about poetry and listening to poetry. As we go ahead and look at the chat, and you'll see, if you haven't seen already, that there's a link to a Google Doc. That's a Google Doc that just summarizes and lists the key resources that I'll mention in the PowerPoint. And I want you to know there are 60 slides in the PowerPoint presentation. We're not going to have enough time to linger and soak in the content, but you can have those slides. Just email me. Janet@janetwong.com is my email address. Email me if you're interested in having the slides, and I will send you a Dropbox link so that you can have them to use in your classroom, in your school, in your district, or if you want to go out and do social justice seminars, please feel free to use any of the slides that are useful to you. Well, let me go ahead and share my screen. And actually, I'm just going to share it like this. I'm going to share my screen. Let's go to the first slide. Play from start. Sharing social justice poetry. You can do it right now. That's sort of where my mind is at right now, is that we have so many things that we intend to do that we never get around to doing. Let's just start doing little bit by little bit, as much as we can in the present, in the immediate. And there's that Google Doc link. If you don't get it from the chat, it's right down below. I want to start with ways to say hello. I've been doing a lot of Zoom sessions for teachers, for librarians, for kids, for families, and I always start with this. And I almost didn't start with this because I said to myself, well, this isn't really a social justice poem. But it is. It is a social justice poem because social justice teaching is about reaching our kids and making them excited to learn, making them happy to be there. And this poem will help you start every day or every meeting in a super fun way. All right. I'm going to do it with the motions and you can follow along. I hope I see some feet. Get ready. Leslie Morrow, I want to see some feet. Ways to say hello by me. Foot wave. Oh, get your foot up there. Get your foot up there. Oh, good job. Air bump.
Oh,
Jazz hands. Heart thump. Thumbs up. Clap hello. Chicken wing. Elbow. Be a chicken. I just read that PETA said we shouldn't say that. That's detrimental, or I guess it would kind of detrimental to the image of chickens. I don't know. Chicken wing, elbow, rabbit ears, fish face. I bring you greetings from inner space. Well, it's my hope that you'll use this as a mentor text with kids and challenge them to come up with their own list poem of touchless greetings, because we want kids to own the work. That's the first step when we're talking about social justice learning, owning the work, feeling invested, feeling honored. So use this. Let your kids laugh at it. If they think that some of these things are super stupid, like maybe they're not into chicken wing elbow, challenge them to come up with their own poem. Well, last week, we were all abuzz over Amanda Gorman and her poem. Her poem, in 5 minutes, she became a superstar. Actually, really, in 20 words, she became a superstar. When I heard her poem, immediately, these lines jumped out at me as the lines. And I have felt so gratified to see these lines over and over. Everywhere I look on the web, I'm encountering these lines. There is always light, if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it. And you'll see at the bottom, I've put The Hill We Climb. It's going to be in a special keepsake edition coming out in mid-March. And her picture book, Change Things, is going to come out too. And I just read yesterday, Amanda Gorman is going to read a poem at the Super Bowl. How cool is that? For those of you who want to hook your kids and get them reinvested in learning, Amanda Gorman is a gift to us all. Well, there are the rare people of personal courage and conviction, secure within themselves, willing to break convention, not reliant on the approval of others for their sense of self, people of deep and abiding empathy and compassion. They are what many of us might wish to be, but not nearly enough of us are. Perhaps once awakened, more of us will be. Well, you are the rare people. You are the people of personal courage and conviction, and I applaud you for being here. But sometimes it feels a little lonely. It feels a little lonely going out on a limb and talking about social justice. Not every school environment is into that. And so when you feel that way, read this poem. Share this poem with your kids. This, like many of the poems I'll share with you, is a poem that works from K through university, I think. I think the best poems really do speak to readers of all ages. Some of the poems that I'll share today really are more for middle school and high school and university. Others are more for pre-K and primary. I think many of them apply to intermediate, probably I would say 95%. But let me just read this poem. One, by Janice Harrington. When you're the only one, the tall one, the short one, the one with glasses, the one with braces, when you're the only one who came from there, the only one with frizzy hair, when you're the only one and feel like there's a big fat sign hanging above your head or an alarm calling, the only one, the only one, the only one. Remember, there are lots of only ones. 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 means you're part of a crowd. You fit right in. Just look for all the other only ones and you'll have lots of friends. My computer has started to make a noise like it's going to explode. I sure hope it doesn't do that. All right, let's see. Let's move to the next poem. Here's a poem that I love that's in Woke. Rock the Boat by Elizabeth Acevedo, from Woke by Mahogany L. Brown, Elizabeth Acevedo, and Olivia Gatwood, and it's in the list of resources. This is a book that you need to buy. I'm just going to read this portion in the yellow. And sometimes it might seem you are the only one who can see or feel that something is not quite right in how another is being treated or in how you are being treated. And you may want to be quiet so as not to rock the boat, but just know you contain waves. You are an ocean. Your heart is as large as lakes. And when it quakes, you have to rise and let the tide inside you shake every single ship that would attempt to sweep someone beneath. Rock the boat with love and hope. Rock the boat. Now, there are some schools where you'll encounter some resistance and people will say, you know, that's too political. That we don't want to do that kind of a thing. Well, you could say to them, this poem is an example of the use of repetition. This poem is an example of the use of consonants, and we're actually doing a unit on idioms. And this is one of the most popular idioms still in use today, often used as a rallying cry for political or social change. But what we're looking at are idioms. And you can use whatever it is you want to use, find the standards that you need to hold up to justify your choices, and be free. Feel free to do it. So for instance, there's a language arts standard that talks about using and interpreting quotes or quotations from famous people. Well, you could use this quote from John Lewis: "Never ever be afraid to make some noise and get in good trouble, necessary trouble." So there's always a way to work around. Now, you might have some colleagues who really don't want to rock the boat, and you need to print this poem out, put it in the faculty lounge, and say, "That boat you told me not to rock sank a long time ago." And it did. Just because you do not take an interest in politics doesn't mean politics won't take an interest in you. To put this in words that a first grader could understand, you could say, "I'm not interested in being cold. I don't like cold." But you know what? Even though you might be in a room that's 70 degrees, when you step outside, it is 30 degrees. You are going to be cold. So just because you don't take an interest in being cold doesn't mean that being cold doesn't take an interest in you. I've been writing about racism for a long time. This book, Good Luck Gold, came out in 1994 with that Chinese Barbie doll cover, and was reissued by me when the book went out of print. I secured the rights. I got the rights back. They reverted to me, and I made my own version with this cover. Here's this poem: "Ching Chong Chinaman. Those kids over there are laughing at me. My hair, my nose, my skin. I hear the noise. Ching Chong. I won't let it in. They're pulling their lids up, down, and out to the side, making wide eyes slit thin, faking being some kind of Chinese I've never seen, chanting Ching Chong, Ching Chong. Open your eyes, Chinese. It's only noise. Ching Chong. I won't let it in. I won't let it in. I promise myself I won't let them win." Well, the only time in my adult life that I remember this happening to me, I mean, this happened many times in my childhood, but the only time in my adult life that this happened was when I was at Yale Law School, and I was walking down a little neighborhood side street to go to the funky neighborhood organic food market. And as I was walking on this small street, a bunch of boys on bicycles, probably 8 or 9 or 10 years old, came up behind me and started chanting Ching Chong, Ching Chong, Ching Chong. And you know, how do you deal with that when that happens? I was taught just ignore it. And so I ignored it, and they followed me for about a block or a block and a half doing this. And then later on, much later, I wrote this poem. And later, much later, a middle school in New Haven was having an anti-bullying campaign, and they found this poem and they contacted me and said, "We want to put these words on our t-shirt as part of our anti-bullying fundraiser. We want to put, I won't let it in. I won't let it in. I promise myself I won't let them win." And that really is the heart of the poem. For whatever people want to hurl at us, I won't let it in. I won't let it in. I promise myself I won't let them win. Feel free to copy that, put it in your classroom. With our current ruptures, it is not enough to be to not be racist or sexist. Our times call for being pro-African American, pro-woman, pro-Latino, pro-Asian, pro-Indigenous, pro-humanity in all its manifestations. Well, we want kids to stand up. We want them to learn to stand up for what they believe in And this is a poem that you can use. Each time, there are 4 times. Each time you hear me say the word stand up, I want you to stand up and then sit back down. All right? Okay? Excuse me. Be a friend when someone's hurting. Give a smile or a helping hand. Don't be shy about asserting what is right. Just take a stand. Stand up. Okay, now you can sit down again. If you want to make things better, think of things that you can do. Make a call or send a letter. Illustrate your point of view. Stand up. Okay, now you can sit down again. In a tizzy, feeling nervous, know your rights and learn your laws. Join a march or day of service. Find some friends to join your cause. Stand up. Don't just sit there on the sidelines when you see there's work to do. If you think we need new guidelines, write them up. It's up to you. Stand up. Okay, give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you. Thank you for standing up. And you know what? It might seem kind of silly, but the practice of physically standing up, that memory of physically standing up will come back to your students when they see someone being bullied, when they see someone being harassed. They'll remember that and they will be able to stand tall and help them. Well, this summer's events got me thinking that I needed to learn a lot more about how to be anti-racist. And so I plunged into reading these books for adults, or actually the book in the middle, stamped Racism, Anti-Racism, and You, is Jason Reynolds' remix of Ibram X. Kendi's book, Stamped from the Beginning, which was a National Book Award winner. Well, but I think that even though it's written for middle school, high school, that I got a ton out of it. And Jason Reynolds has such a flamboyant way of writing that it just grabs you and won't let you go. Well, I read these books and I felt like I had really educated myself and learned a whole lot from what I read. And it made me realize that I needed to read more deeply in terms of literature. And so I looked at Say Her Name by Zetta Elliott and her poem Black Lives Matter. I'll just read the part in the yellow. You are visible and valuable to us. We humbly thank sisters. She's referring to the 3 founders of the Black Lives Matter movement, Alicia Garza, Opal Tometi, and Patrice Con-Cullors. We humbly thank you, sisters, for coining this affirmation, for sparking this revolution, for building this vital movement, for upholding us with this steady love. Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter doesn't need to be a scary thing. The phrase has been so demonized by so many people. The phrase, the intent of the organization has been so misunderstood that I felt that I needed to write a Black Lives Matter poem. And so I did. When we say dumplings are delicious, it doesn't mean we only want to eat dumplings all day long. We can love noodles and berries and cake too. So when we say Black Lives Matter, it doesn't mean our Black friends are the only ones we care about. Black Lives Matter means we understand many things are not fair, especially for people who are Black, especially when police are involved. It means we will speak up and do what we can to move forward together and not fall back. Will you say it? Can you say it with me? Black Lives Matter. Saying it is the first step to seeing it come true. Justice for everyone starts with me and you. Well, Black Lives Matter by Zetta Elliott, and even this poem by me, might be high school and middle school. You might not be ready to use them in elementary school. But for fifth graders and fourth graders and third graders, I think that this is a book you definitely can use and should use, that you must use, A Place Inside of Me. It sets up the all too familiar scenario where on the news, we find out that someone has been shot. A girl has been shot and killed. And this boy on the cover is racked with sorrow, with anger. The whole community is in shock. And what do? Well, they have a candlelight vigil. And here are the words on that page. There is still hope inside of me, a promise deep down inside of me that I will use my life to help others and they will help me in return. A place, I just got a call from somebody. Anyway, A Place Inside of Me, and it's read by Zetta Elliott for the Boston Book Festival story time at this link. She does an amazing job of reading the book and also talking about it. When kids see pictures of protests, they'll often see the raised fist. And actually, this has become a symbol that some people misunderstand, that some people are even afraid of, which is why we need to talk about it. So there's a link up top to a nationalgeographic.com story about the history of the raised fist as a global symbol. That piece, I feel, is high school, middle school, or fifth, fourth, and third grade. It might be a little hard for third grade, but you could do it as a read aloud for third grade. Here's Kevin's poem, The Loudest of Hands, Kevin Noble Maillard. Raise your fist in the air like you really do care. Extend your arm to the sky and make your movement talk. Listen to the subtle speech and rhythm of your own body. Your small gesture is physical, the meaning colossal. Elevate your fist to connect with the heavens above and shine. The fact that you will be sharing this poem with your students will mean so much to so many of your students. Give it a try. We Are Water Protectors is the book that won the Caldecott Medal this week. And it's about Standing Rock and the Dakota Access Pipeline. And here is a picture of the protest. And it's really useful to use picture books to help kids understand what protests are all about, what peaceful protests are all about. And if they don't want to march, okay, there are other ways. You can do it right now. You can shout at a march. You can quietly pray. You can read the news and share it today. You can send the mayor of your town a note. You can make a sign that tells people to vote. You can talk to your family. You can listen to friends. There are different ways to reach the same ends, to fight injustice, to show that you care. You can do it right now from anywhere. Well, again, from Amanda Gorman, being American is more than a pride we inherit. It's the past we step into and how we repair it. Now, to understand the past that we step into, reading something like Stamped is incredibly useful. Here in the afterword, Jason Reynolds writes, the construct, I hope it's clear now, the construct of race has always been used to gain and keep power, whether financially or politically. How it has always been used to create dynamics that separate us, to keep us quiet, to keep the ball of white and rich privilege rolling, and that it's not woven into people as much as it's woven into policy that people adhere to and believe is truth. Well, Many of us have seen this cartoon, but usually we see only the first two panels, that equality is not enough, that we need equity to boost um, everyone to the same level. We might need a different number of boxes for different people. Well, at this organization's website, storybasedstrategy.org, they look at liberation as the next step and say, that's better. You've removed the fence entirely, but is this good enough? And they challenge us. Come up with your own cartoon, your own idea here. And I think that this is a great exercise for kids. When 4 years ago, there was the presidential election result that I did not want, I sprung into action with Sylvia Vardell, putting together this book, Here We Go, a Poetry Friday Power Book. And we had Naomi Shihab Nye write about empathy and peace. We had David Bowles write about living in two worlds as a border kid. I wrote a poem that said, what if instead of this country and that country, this state and that state, these people and those people, it was just us here and us there? What if? Well, when I read this book, the divide that exists between, 51% and 49% of us today really became super, super clear toward the end of the book, where Isabel Wilkerson talks about a plumber who is from the dominant caste, so he's white, and he clearly seems racist from how she describes his interaction with her. And she's wondering, okay, how am I going to get this flooded basement cleaned up? Because this guy is not willing to help me. He's not listening to me. He's not responding to me. What can I do? And she says she threw up a Hail Mary to his humanity. And she revealed that her mother had died. And she started asking him about his mother. And all of a sudden, like magic, all the hatred started melting away. And so she wrote, if each of us could truly see and connect with the humanity of the person in front of us, search for that key that opens the door to whatever we may have in common, whether cosplay or Star Trek or the loss of a parent, it could begin to affect how we see the world and others in it, perhaps change the way we hire or even vote. Each time a person reaches across caste and makes a connection, it helps to break the back of caste. Well, this statement came out just the day before the inauguration last week by Secretary Pompeo. Wokeism, multiculturalism, all the isms, they're not who America is. They distort our glorious founding. And he went on to just totally disrespect the idea of multiculturalism and diversity. This man who is descended from Italian immigrants said that multiculturalism is not who we are. So clearly, we do need to step back and go back. We thought it was a 1990s thing, but it's not. We need to go back and we need to reaffirm the importance of diversity. In the I Am From project, they say, one of their central goals is to create a national river of voices, reminding America that diversity is our origin and our strength. This is based on George Ella Lyon's famous Where I'm From poem that many of you are familiar with, where instead of describing herself in what we would consider typical terms, she starts out, I am from clothespins, from Clorox and carbon tetrachloride. I am from the dirt under the back porch. I did a Where I'm From project that we entitled Where We're From. And I did this with the State Teachers of the Year 3 years ago. 2.5 years ago when they were gathered at their conference, and we put together this trifold of their poems that told where they're from, but not as where they're from in a state, but where they're from in more poetic terms. So the California Teacher of the Year said, "I come from the strings of a pawn shop guitar that brought joy to calloused hands." Wow, we learned so much about him just from those words. Well, when we look at our identities, we have to honor the concept of intersectionality, that we all have multiple identities. You might be in a room full of girls, but no two are exactly alike. Classmate with nose ring and printed headband, soccer player with flowing scarf and full smile, student in library with brown skin and headphones. And I think that one of the things we need to do is explore this intersectionality and use it to our advantage to bring us together. So you might have a classroom full of kids who feel that they are very different from one another. Maybe they feel that those students over there have nothing in common with them. So you take a poem like this that has nothing to do with social justice teaching. It's just, hey, bunch of snakes, group one hither, group two thither, all together, ready, slither. And in determining who the groups are, you start throwing out some terms. So you say, okay, on this side, group one, dragons, group two, unicorns, and the kids will divide themselves in some way. Then you say, okay, group one, now group one's going to be hummus. Group two is going to be hamburgers, and they will shuffle themselves in probably a different way. Soccer, tennis, purple, green, paper, plastic, Minecraft, Among Us. And then you challenge them to come up with their own things, because it's all about self-identification, how they see themselves. This poem is right on target in terms of that topic. Why do forms always ask what I am instead of asking who? As a response poem to that, I wrote this poem in the voice of Paz. Today I am. Today I am someone who ate ice cream for breakfast, someone who dresses like a panda, black and white, someone who hates the smell of banana peels in the class trash, someone who carries way too much in my backpack, someone who carries way too much in my head. Now, you see how we can make connections with each other if we get into very specifically looking at our identities. Another way to explore our identities is to look at the author descriptions on the back flaps, the back jacket flaps of books. So you can see here we've got some pretty, standard language for these descriptions. Here we have some different. So for instance, Carol Boston Weatherford is a professor of English. Her award-winning work celebrates African-American experiences. Over the years, she has shared a home with beagles, Lucky, Snoopy, Hendrix, and Gigi. And for myself, wrote a verse novel, Min and Jake, filled with pet fish and lizards. Her favorite pet ever was a Norwegian boohund named Nissa. So pets can actually get us to open up about each other. Well, let me pause for a second and take a look at the time. Okay, all right, good. I want to switch gears now and look again. So Amanda Gorman challenged us to see how we repair it, right? It's the past we step into and how we repair it. Well, I think that all of these things, all of these strategies will inch us toward that goal. But this one is really key and is something we can do every day. So Ijeoma Oluo wrote, So You Want to Talk About Race. And in this book, she says, We have to recognize the achievements of Black and Brown children and recognize everyday wins. Focus on everyday wins. So how can we do that? Poetry can help us. And this poem in particular is a great way to do it. Compliment Chain by Mary Lee Hahn, who is a 4th grade teacher from Ohio, who is very active in NCTE. She says, your 2 small words, good job, filled me up. I sat straighter in my chair. I had worked hard, and you noticed. My friend is bent over his paper. His pencil moves slowly, carefully. I say 2 small words, good job, and watch him sit up straight. Well, here's the exercise. Here's the challenge. For you to share with students poems that contain phrases that they can use as compliments. So for instance, to go around the room every day and have a compliment chain where they either invent a compliment on their own or they look to a text and they borrow some words. Maybe they're going to say, I like the fact that you speak up for what's fair. Maybe they're going to say, you have a tender heart full of caring. You have a brain that seeks to learn, to know. You are brilliant. You can light up the world. In this poem that I wrote for No Voice Too Small, a book about children and teens who are activists, I write about Adoritz Fitek, who became famous for a TED Talk where she said, adults can learn from kids. And she became very famous for being listened to. So my compliment to her would be, you open your mouth and the whole world listens. Well, I love this poem. This poem actually is perfect to use at any time. Soul Magic by Alice Faye Duncan. I read books and make dreams happen. I open my mouth and the whole world listens. The people talk my talk. They dance my dance. I am soul magic, like Harriet, Martin, and Coretta. I am my daddy's sky. I am my mama's star. I have no beginning. My soul is ancient. And this poem, Everyday Use, is a poem that you can use every single day to remind kids that the struggle for social justice, the struggle for equity is something that we need to work on daily. Our muscles grow strong. Follow along with the motions. Our muscles grow strong with everyday use. Strong arms can offer a tender embrace. A heart that is brave can soften with compassion. A clever mind can find time to daydream. Sharp eyes can see both sides of the problem. And the fastest feet can slow to march the long road to justice. You can use that poem as a brain break. You can use this one too, where you march. Everybody, either sitting down or on your feet, let's march for the 20 seconds that it takes to read this poem, okay? And wherever you are, read this poem aloud with me, because we also need to exercise our voices. We need to have kids exercise their voices. And I think you're all muted, so it's fine. But even if you're not, it's okay. All right, ready? March by Susie Levinson. We march for a future that's brighter, for justice, for freedom, for choice. We march because we have the power to fight for what's right with our voice. Equality, peace, education. Nothing can stand in our way. We march for a better tomorrow that starts with a better today. Good job, thank you. Well, an easy way to make poetry breaks is with a poetry suitcase. In my poetry suitcase, I have all kinds of different things, like a lion and a pencil and a crazy hat. But you know, one thing that you could put in your poetry suitcase if you want to make one is a mask. And then share this poem, Masks for All. The key line is, any mask is a good look. Or put in a pencil, a pen, put in some Legos and read this poem when I feel scared to give comfort to your students. Or I love this poem. It's so simple, but it says so much. The Artist by Mariah Dessa. Let me say that again because she taught me how to say it. Mariah Dessa, Akari Tali. When I don't have words, but I want to talk, I use my crayons or sidewalk chalk. I draw the things I feel and see so they don't stay locked inside of me. And you can listen to the poem, to the poet. You can listen to Mariah Dessa reading her own poem at this Vimeo link. You can watch a 1-minute poem movie featuring her young daughter, whose name is Indigo, if you click on that YouTube link. And if you want to look for her book, Layla's Happiness, it's a 5-minute read aloud that will make you instantly happy and will challenge your students to see what they find happiness in. And you can listen to it at the YouTube link here, but support your favorite authors and artists. And after you listen to it, think of the listening to it kind of like as a Costco sample, right? After you sample it, if you like it, buy the book and give it to somebody. So let's not forget that how many million people voted for, well, we won't get into politics, but let's not forget that there are bullies out there. Well, who among us has never bullied anyone? I have bullied people. I have bullied people into eating a second or a third serving of food, when we have a party. Eat more, eat more. It's so good. Isn't it good? You should eat more, because if you don't eat more, then I'll think that I wasn't a good cook. So who among us has never been a bully? We all have been bullies, and we can't ignore them. We have to address the issue of bullying with a poem like this. Somewhere deep inside you, there's a softer, kinder place. I know this will surprise you, but I've seen it in your face. Your eyes are often sad, although you wear a surly grin. Sometimes when you stand all alone, your mien seems worn and thin. I wish that you would take a step, a small but brave one too, and look inside yourself to find the good I see in you. Because people are not simple creatures. We're all very complex. There's also this poem, Lost, because people who are bullies often find that they have lost a friend. Self-care. Let me finish up with talking about self-care. This poem by Zetta Elliott in Say Her Name encourages us to find beauty in little things. See the beauty in small things. See the beauty in yourself, even as you don your armor to make it through another day. And this poem takes us instantly to the beach, On a Beach by Susie Levinson. Picture it. You're on a beach. Below you, sand. Above you, sky. Listen to the crashing waves. Listen to the seagulls cry. Palm trees whisper overhead, swaying in the gentle breeze. Sunlight hugs you, head to toe. Close your eyes, be still, and breathe. Take a breath, long and deep. Let it out, soft and slow. Feel your body growing heavy, sinking in the sand below. Focus on the sand and sun. Feel the salty ocean spray as you inhale. As you exhale, all your worries wash away. There are a number of poetic picture books like Layla's happiness, that will bring instant joy. Just take 5 minutes to read and bring instant joy to your classroom. Maybe you'll start a practice of reading one a week on Friday afternoon. And the new year, as Leslie Morrow reminded us, is here, and the Lunar New Year is coming. It's a time for hope. The Lunar New Year this year will be on February 12th. It's the year of the ox. I have a book on that theme this next new year, a picture book available in 3 different languages. And the most important part of the book is at the very end, where I say, all day tomorrow, Lunar New Year's Day, I will not say one awful thing. None of that. Can't do, don't have, why me? Because this is it, a fresh start, my second chance. And I have so many dreams, so many dreams. I'm ready now to make come true. Well, that's my presentation. We're going to do some Q&A if you can stay. And at the very end, I'd like to play this video, which is kind of fun. And but let's stop sharing now so we can see your faces. And Leslie Morrow, do you want to take over? And
we can open up. First of all, everybody, let's thank Janet. I mean, that was wonderful, Janet. I don't know if you could watch the box down below, but constant comments of rich resources. So wonderful. Loved that. Really, it was so rich and delivered so beautifully. So I think you moved us, and also that one of the purposes, of the whole presentation was the focus on social justice and equity, and you gave everybody plenty to deal with well. And I'm getting some of the books myself too. So let's open it up. I like to see your faces. Raise your hand. I like to hear your voices. We can, also look at the chat. However you'd like to do it is fine. Even if you just want to make a comment, just unmute yourself and say it.
While we're waiting for the first brave person, let me say, there is a link to a Google Doc. If you haven't found it yet, scroll up, or maybe it will be posted again imminently. Kelly Clarita has this wonderful way of just posting things when I mention them. So maybe the Google Doc link will get posted again. The Google Doc just lists the resources that I used in this presentation. But if you have other resources that you think we all should know about, please add them. Just put them in a different color, like put your comment in green or in red or in purple, so that we see it as something different from what I presented, okay? Because I would love for that resource list to grow. I think that would be a wonderful thing. Several of you talked about math and science, and actually I'm going to add some math and science poems to that Google Doc so that you'll have that resource. But who has questions for me? Somebody.
Even if you don't have a question, did something grab you that you're going to use tomorrow or the next week? I'm sure that your minds were going, and if you had some idea about how you're going to use some of what Janet talked about, we'd like to hear that also, or if you've used some of her stuff in the past.
Hi, my name is Chantal Dabadi, and I have been reading.
Wait, so we can see where you are.
Oh, I have to turn it on.
Okay, go ahead.
Here I am.
Good.
I've been reading Isabella Wilkinson's book, and the way you excerpted and used those pieces as poems, it really struck me, because I never even thought to do that. So I was thinking, like, what was the mindset behind that?
Well, the idea was I wanted to to pick out pieces that really spoke to me, that I absolutely wanted everyone to know about. And I wanted to make them large enough so everyone could see. So that meant I couldn't use too much at a time. So that's kind of why they ended up taking the form, more or less, of poems, is because there was a small number of words blown up large. But that book is so eye-opening, isn't it? Isn't it such an affirming, great book?
It's so beautiful, but honestly, like that's one of the things about her writing, like the metaphors are very poetic. And so, but what you did today made me think differently about poetry and how it doesn't have to be in verses to be a poem. So I'm just thinking about how we could take just texts that we love and turn them into poems as you did today. So I just want to say thank you, because that is something that I'm going to share and do.
Absolutely. Thank you. And a lot of people like to use this term. I don't really use it, but a lot of people like to use the term prose poem, that they wrote prose poems. And basically what that means is they wrote poetic paragraphs. And Naomi Shihab Nye has done that. Jacqueline Woodson has done that. George Ella Lyon has written some prose poems for the anthologies that I've curated. And you can use that term with your students too, if you want. You know, write a prose poem, and then maybe it doesn't seem quite as intimidating as a poem with breaking lines. Although I think that breaking lines is a very liberating thing and helps us organize our thoughts. So I really like to break lines for that reason. But for some people, it's more comfortable to write a paragraph. And if you need to call it poetry because you're in that unit or whatever, then you could say, oh, this is a great prose poem. Or you know, if the assignment has been write a poem, and they come back at you what clearly is a paragraph, then you say, this is a really interesting prose poem, I like it. So thank you Chantal.
I really want to thank you very much for the positive and self-affirming quality to all of the references that you gave us. The times are so turbulent. There are so many things that make us feel we have to go out and fight, and to give our children things that first take care of their souls and their spirits is so very important. And I really want to thank you for the idea. We do Where I'm From poems in our school every year to orient the children to understanding who they are, how they've grown over the course of the year, and that they're new people that come to the school with new ideas. And I think that this year, I really would love to introduce them to the concept of good trouble, and perhaps have them write poems that are good trouble poems.
Or have them write about, and specifically as a prompt, you can say, write about a time where you have stood up for someone, or you wish you had stood up for someone. Right. And it could be, and then give them an example from your own life. And it doesn't have to be a earth-shattering thing. Like for me, maybe I would say, I stood up for my grandfather when we were in the supermarket, and he was asking, he at the time was 96 years old, and he was asking the butcher a question, and he said it in a perfectly understandable way. And the butcher didn't want to listen to him. And so the butcher didn't hear anything that could be answered. And the butcher started shouting at him, saying, "What do you mean? I can't understand what you're saying." And I stood up and I said, "Excuse me, sir. He said very clearly, he wants and I don't even remember what it was, but it was something like, he wants a standing rib roast with the bones on it. And those are the words he used. Why can't you help him?" And so give an example from your own life, even if it's a small thing, to show them how you have stood up for someone, or how you wish you had stood up for someone in the past. Thank you.
I particularly loved how your whole presentation was so calming, and yet it was so much about a difficult subject to talk about and often gets people kind of upset or uptight. But I feel relaxed and, you know, wanting to go forward in that lovely way. The way you presented it, and which should be the way we do this with children too. Because what we see on television, you know, with protests and so on, just have anger in them. And this had love in it and good feelings in it. And I think that's what is a better way of, you know, getting this message across. So thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. And
I
just to
wanna-
follow up and repeat myself on this one thing, Zetta Elliott's book, A Place Inside of Me, is a book that deals with a difficult topic, a girl being shot and killed. And that in and of itself would be enough to make a lot of school administrators say,
Yeah.
you know what, skip that book. We don't need that
Mhm.
book. But then you need to press and say, but that's not what the book is about. The book is about how we can come together after these horrific things have happened, how we can make sense and move forward with compassion and calm ourselves and be peaceful and continue on with our lives. So,
Yeah,
Thank
Anne Marie is raising her hand.
I just actually wanted to piggyback off of what both of you had just said. Because I teach trauma sensitive yoga too. So I think being sensitive to these issues that could be very triggering for people of color, you know, when we're reading these books. And, you know, the way that you've approached it with so kind and so loving, and
Yeah.
also with like lots of choices in mind. So like allowing kids to like move their bodies however they want to, like having choices back is really important for them. And you know, the trauma of COVID is real. Generational trauma is real. You know, the effects of racism as trauma on the brain is real. So like keeping all of those in mind as we're moving through these topics is so important as well. So I loved the mindfulness poem at the end too, taking that time to breathe.
thank you. Thank you, Anne Marie. There's also a poem in Hop to It called Zen Tree, and I'll put it in the Google Doc. Zen Tree by Margaret Simon, who is a teacher in Louisiana, who also writes poetry. And the last line of that is where she imagines herself being a tree in a yoga way. The last line is, wrap myself in a holding hug. And I think that all of the rich literature out there, the picture books, the poems with a mindfulness theme can only benefit us. So they need to be shared on a daily basis, if possible.
I love what you proposed for your ending. Would you like to put that up and we can sing along?
Okay, I won't sing the first part, but
well, we can just listen and enjoy.
yeah, but actually everybody needs to unmute then, and you all need to sing. All right. Okay.
Yeah, it's
So
a good
let's
time
do
to
that. We'll
unmute.
finish off with this, and go ahead and email me if you have any more questions, janet@janetwong.com, or in the Google Doc. If you see it again in the chat, go ahead and look for it there. I am going to share my screen, and we're going to share the desktop, and then I will minimize this. And I will maximize this. This is just super fun, just a super fun thing to. And you have to dance. 525,000 moments so deep. 500
525,600 minutes. How do you measure? Measure a year in daylights, in sunsets, in midnights, cups of coffee, in inches, in miles, and laughter and strife. In 525,600 minutes. How do you measure a year in the life? How about times that he cried, and the bridges he burned, all the way that she died. It's time sunshine, let the sun shine in, the sun shining.
Well, are you inspired?
Yes.
Thank you for being here, everyone. Thank you, Leslie Morrow. Thank you, Kelly Clarita. Thank you, Sharon Masso. Anything else that you guys want to say?
I didn't say thank you to Kelly and Sharon, so I needed to say that right now. Thank you all for coming. Please join us again. A song just fits in with everything that Janet had to say. And have a lovely evening, and thank you again for joining us. See you soon.
Thank you, Janet. Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. Bless.
Thank you.
You. Leslie, should we read the comments?
I've been reading them. They're wonderful. They're absolutely wonderful.